Charles Dickens, J.K. Rowling, Steven Spielberg, these are people who literally wire our brains. Financial education for kids, if it's completely zero, is a bad thing.
Ummah and British Muslims from a financial economical perspective in the next 20 years.
Do it for about 5 years in a consistent area. You will be world class. Why do I think it's important to focus on entrepreneurs? The game plan, I think, for graduates. I'm thinking, okay, 28 grand, it's frankly not enough. I need to think of a pathway from going from 28 to ideally about 100.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all. Welcome back to the Firmly Rooted podcast. I'm Hamza, your host, and no longer a medical student at Manchester. I finished just a few weeks ago from God's will. So really, this episode is one that I've been particularly looking forward to as someone who will be joining the workforce and earning soon. And today's episode is about money from the Islamic lens and the young Muslim lens. And there's no better person in a position like this to talk about this topic than our beloved guest today. He's an Oxford graduate, ex-corporate lawyer, formally educated in Islamic finance, and a founder of Islamic Finance Guru. It's none other than Ibrahim Khan. Ibrahim, welcome.
Jazakallah khair. It's a pleasure to be on.
It's a pleasure to have you on. So Ibrahim, tell me, how are you today?
Alhamdulillah, doing quite well. Looking forward to getting into this conversation.
Yes. There's a lot to talk about today, but I want to talk about one important question first.
Let's do
As a born and bred Mancunian, how's Manchester been for like the last few months? How's the move?
Manchester's, I think it's my favourite city.
Really?
I mean, that's partly why I agreed to move here. My in-laws live here. My parents live quite nearby. So it was a natural, I think, to move. People in Manchester on the roads are quite dozy, I find. So, in London, they're all kind of, if you think of it as dogs, right? You've got the Scott Russell, the terrier just yapping around and ready to go. That's East London driving, and it will nip you in the ankles if you mess around too much. Whereas in here, it's like an elderly, I don't know, English bulldog type vibe, where you have to kind of, you have to give them 2 or 3 seconds once they turn green and they're still not moving, then you might have to like...
I like that about Manchester.
It's nice. It is nice.
I like it. So you moved because of family?
Yeah.
Nice. But you still work in London?
Still work in London, yeah.
Nice. That's noble. But we used to joke, me and my friends used to joke that Manchester's the best city in the world just because it's got like really nice like outskirts where it's not that busy, but you still have like the London vibe. Here in Piccadilly. So no, you're correct in saying Manchester is your favorite city.
Yeah, for sure. No, I really enjoyed it.
Nice. So you work from home then, but you're like Cur8 and IFG, that's all still happening in London?
Yeah, so I mean IFG and Cur8 is basically just one thing, but our offices are in Stratford, so I'm down Monday evening all the way through to Wednesday evening, so
nice.
I stay over one night.
Nice. Hard work.
Yeah, I mean it's just work really.
Yeah,
it's not even really work. If you do something that you enjoy and is making a difference, then it doesn't really feel like work.
Yeah, nice. And let's talk about your work, because for the last many years you've kind of dedicated your career towards like Islamic finance, which is very different to like what you started off as a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I think when we're talking about money and finances from an Islamic lens in this episode and what the young Muslims should be thinking about, I think it's important to first step back and think, like, why are we having this discussion in the first place? Why is this important? And clearly it's very important for you. So why was there like this shift in your career, and why is this such a priority for you to talk about and dedicate?
Yeah, I think, I mean, to be honest, interestingly enough, Islamic finance and investments, especially if you're a corporate lawyer, which is what I was, there's a strong overlap. So it wasn't as hard left a shift as one might initially think. I think for me personally, it was about trying to make a difference with the interests or skill sets that I had. And you look around the world and you see how wealth is a way that shapes literally the physical and also digital and also possibly metaphysical fabric of the reality around us. And I'll give you like a crazy example of this. Charles Dickens, J.K. Rowling, Michael Morpurgo, Steven Spielberg. These are people who literally they wire our brains, and they wire our brains because we as human beings, when a child is developing, no one teaches them how to speak. They kind of learn and they pick it up, and they talk and they see, and it's the kind of cause and effect relationship. The child, for the first time he sees a fire, he doesn't know it's hot until he touches it, and so all of this stuff we absorb, and that wires our brain, and we learn through stories, right? And all of these people, they write stories, and so the money that underpins this entire enterprise, right? Whether it's books or narratives or media, film, that's just one little microcosm of how it has such an enabling effect, and you project that onto how human beings then behave as a result of those stories. Like, where do we think it's acceptable to spend? How do we think it's acceptable to behave with our parents? How do we think about the entrepreneurial dream, right, versus being an employee? What does it mean to be a good employee? All of these things we actually pick up through the media that I just talked about. And so if we're going to be trying to create a new world or a new way of doing things, or a world where Islam and Muslims can flourish, then that actually requires the wealth or the money aspect, the commercial lubricant that makes everything else go around. That actually needs to have a point of view, and our money needs to be, because every one of us, if we think of it as this lubricant example, everyone produces a few pints, right? But individually it doesn't really make a difference, but if you look at the wider flows of where all of these pints are headed, that's actually what creates the real lubricants that make major tectonic shifts happen in the world. And so for me as a I guess teenager or university student, perhaps it wasn't as well developed at that point, but I definitely had this kind of intuition that I'm passionate about investments and finance and money, and the Muslim community and the Ummah and our state of affairs, and how weak we are, relatively speaking, in the world. And if there was a way that I could take the little resources that we have, and we start thinking intelligently about how we can guide them in a certain direction, and that creates a world that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be more pleased with, that's a win.
I see. And what sort of narrative are you trying to write or rewrite for the Muslims?
I think it comes down to what I said a little bit earlier about what does He want from this world. We want a world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants a world where Islam, this act, this verb of submission, and this verb of putting what He wants before what you want, to be manifest across society, and that that shows in behaviors, it shows in how people interact with each other, it shows in the physical fabric of the built landscape, it shows in how people think and talk, like it shows in everywhere, right? And then Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to have interactions with the huquq, the huquq al-ibad, the ibad around us, the servants or the slaves of Ar-Rahman, the creation of Ar-Rahman. We should have a relationship with that creation, whether that's plants or animals or other Muslims, non-Muslims, whoever, disabled people, whatever it might be, in a fashion that He has ordained, and trying to bring about a world that is more in line with that. That's maybe a fancy way of saying it, but at the heart of it, I think it's about creating a space for Muslims to be truly Muslim, and a space for non-Muslims to see the beauty and benefit of Islam. That's what I would like to create.
Interesting. So it sounds like you've focused specifically on finance because of the skills that you already have, but it's just a channel to that wider mission, which is to allow Muslims to live a more Islamic, God-centered life? It sounds like that's your
100%.
your ultimate mission. It's just finance is just one channel that you've just gone all in
Yeah.
with.
If we think about it as, I think there's if we have like a taxonomy of different areas of society, I think there's basically four. There's the ideas and philosophy aspect. There's the political aspect and who controls things. There's the economic aspect, and then there's this spiritual kind of metaphysical kind of aspect.
Yeah.
That I think is what everything boils down to.
Yeah.
And each of us have a natural inclination towards one of those four things, I think. I have some of us have more of inclinations across different things, but I think where I've landed or where I'm strongest relative to others is this economic thread. And me alone, or the IFG mission alone, or the Islamic finance industry alone are not actually going to be able to bring this world about. Everyone needs to step up. You need to step up, via the NHS or the medical sector or healthcare, and do your bit. But everyone needs to be, ultimately heading in that same direction.
Yeah, nice. And there's a lot of ways that this conversation could like really derail, and I really want to derail it, but I'll stick to a bit of a structure.
Go on silent.
But I want to touch on a lot of those things about building. How do we strengthen the ummah? How do we do our own bit in our own way? That's all coming. But for now, let's keep to kind of starting off with the more practical aspects, and then we can kind of
let's do it.
Dive deeper and deeper and deeper. But before we do that, you mentioned like Michael Morpurgo, like J.K. Rowling, kind of like kids sort of authors. Is this kind of stuff really important for children as well? Even like from the finance economic perspective, are we kind of really late in the game to learn about these basic principles?
I don't know, to be honest, the answer to that. I think financial education for kids, if it's completely zero, is a bad thing. But kids also don't need to be, Warren Buffett. I think it's important to have that basic grounding. And I would categorize this education as the kind of education that we don't really talk about, but actually is really fundamental to our life. So I would classify, preventative medicine, healthcare. I thought I'd win some brownie points with you.
Nice.
As one of that area, right? Like if you actually taught kids that kind of stuff, arguably that's actually more transformational for them and their happiness levels and their outcomes than geography. I mean, who cares about geography? Maybe, to be fair, maybe there is some value to geography as well. But that, compared to preventative health, and
I mean, geography and education are linked, so it's kind of one and the same almost.
I was kind of being a bit unfair on geography, but I think that is that same bucket of finance and money and investments where people don't really think about it as like a subject or as a thing that you should even care about. But actually, it's a really fundamental enabling thing that enables everything else, like your health.
Let's talk about what we're trying to prevent, or maybe trying to alleviate. There was a report from the Muslim Census, and this report was called Muslims and the Cost of Living Crisis 2022. It was a survey of 1,500 Muslims, 64% of which were between 18 to 34-year-olds. And there's some like really interesting stats regarding finance here. In this year, in 2022, 1 in 5 British Muslims surveyed said that they used a food bank in the last year. More than half of British Muslims experienced difficulty in paying at least one bill in the last year. 65% of Muslims had to take out some form of debt to manage everyday costs and bills. And almost a third of Muslims living in the UK have missed a meal to afford their household bills. So it puts into perspective where Muslims in the UK are at the moment. Is this part of your mission? Are we trying to prevent this? Is this a big thing in your head, these stats, or where the average Muslim is at this point?
I think it's important, and I will talk about that. But actually, quite weirdly and counterintuitively, for me, my mission is that, I don't actually think the best time can be spent in taking, people from 0 to 1. I actually think the better way to do it for us, just from an efficiency perspective, is to go to people who've already got to 8 and get them to about 15 or 20, kind of, once they're up and running.
Yeah.
And then make sure that they are actually practicing Muslims, and that actually unlocks the because why are Muslims poor?
Let the 15s help the zeros.
Yeah, and I know it sounds like a really Tory thing to say, but why are Muslims, why are poor people poor in society? It's because of the actual structures of society. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
The way that our monetary system works, the way that we've seen those who are in charge, are part of a particular class, and the rules of the game are heavily in their favor. So it's like, again, it's like medicine, right? Are you going to just inexorably kind of deal with this rising obesity crisis and all of the implications of it, and you're just kind of trying to stem this flow somehow?
Yeah.
Or are you going to actually take a step back and think, you know what, we need to address obesity, right? Or we need to address the core thing, and deal with that. And
so that's actually a really good analogy.
Yeah,
that's a good analogy. Yeah. You're trying to assess the root problem, which isn't, and instead of the symptom, it sounds like. Fine.
But let's actually talk about what people should do, right? Practically,
because you're making me feel like I should skip the whole sort of practical tips and get to the bigger picture. But I think let's
do it.
Let's touch on it a bit, and then we can get to what we really want to talk about. In just a bit. But fine, let's talk about the 0 to 1 first.
Let's do that. So, because everyone ultimately does start from there. The very first thing that we should be thinking about is a simple maths equation: income minus expenditure equals savings. So that's the simple maths equation, that if you can understand that, you've understood your own personal finances. Why? Well, because if you're not making a saving, if you're a company, you're bankrupt, right? If your income is not enough, your expenditure is too much, you'll go bankrupt. Same thing happens with a human being, but with a human being, instead, they will, have to go for, welfare, or they might have to take out debts, or, they have other kind of issues, right? So what is the way to solve this then? Well, the way to solve it is that the very first thing you need to do is get into the green. Your income needs to either increase, or your expenditure needs to decrease, or both of those things need to happen. And that's when you start saving. So how can you increase your income? Well, some really easy tips on increasing your income would be to ask for a pay rise. Like, all you have to do is just ask. Especially if you've been a few years and you're hopefully, relatively important for the role that you're in, you should ask for a pay rise. And there's lots of online resources about how to do that. But it could just be that, look, inflation has gone up by X, Y, Z, and therefore, I'd like you to kind of increase it along with that.
Yeah. In the NHS, you can't just ask. You have to do strikes, but that has worked in the last year. So that's a good point.
So that's the first way. The second way, which you could do in the NHS, is do a side hustle or extra shifts or locums, right? Private practice, a bit too early for you still, but ultimately that's that kind of stuff you can do, where your salary goes from, let's say, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 to 500 more, 1,000 more on top. That's actually very, very material for people, and it can really add up. So side hustles, what I think would be a really important thing. The third thing you can do, and this might get me shot by some people, but is get married, right? And possibly get married to someone wealthy, or someone who is at least on your same wavelength.
The golden dink.
Exactly. Well, and why do I say that? Well, partly it's because of economies of scale, right? Because why would you both if both of you are living on, I don't know, like one bedroom, or you're both paying rent, you're both paying all your overheads, you combine the two things together, and actually suddenly you start seeing savings, and there's some tax benefits as well.
Nice.
So you can take advantage of that. So there's a whole bunch of things that you can do to actually increase your income.
Yeah.
And then on the expenditure side, there are people who say, look, create spreadsheets and do this and that and the other. There's actually some interesting stuff. I did it yesterday. I might regret it. Is take my bank statement and give it to ChatGPT. Or there was someone who's created a specific engine on top of OpenAI, which parses your bank statements and gives you a bit of a financial assessment. So you could do something like that. But actually, on the expenditure side, there's some really simple things. Look for the big ticket items. If you can move those, then you're actually going to make savings. So the obvious one is your rent or your mortgage. If there are ways that you can try and cut that down in some way, shape, or form, whether that means moving out a bit further, commuting in, whatever the case might be, sharing. Maybe you don't need a really nice 2-bedroom flat. Maybe a bit more of a rougher 3-bedroom terraced house will do you perfectly fine. The second big expenditure people have is cars. I don't understand why there are so many Muslims. You've given us the stats. Why do so many Muslims drive so nice cars? It doesn't make sense. I drive a Toyota Prius from 2009.
Nice. Wow.
And
that's older than my car. I've got a Corsa.
All right, it's a nice car. I used to have a Corsa actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I like my Corsa.
Well, what year is it?
16.
All right,
so it's pretty fancy. Yeah,
you've upgraded in life. Prius is a solid though.
Yeah.
I have been at various points tempted to shift away, but I stick with it because it just doesn't break.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, cars, the second one, and then the third one is lots of the direct debits, the unused subscriptions. If you can try and eke out a few hundred quid between those three things, that's actually massive. And then if you want to get brownie points, then go after the food and really think about do you need to have that takeaway, this takeaway, that takeaway. But that's actually quite hard sometimes because that's quite behavioral and it's hard to change behaviors. Whereas one time
you're really thinking like a medic now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what we in finance and investments, where you're dealing with people and their behaviors and trying to figure out what's good for them. Good for their financial health. That's actually what you have to think about as well. So it's
there's more overlap between our fields than I first thought.
100%.
Okay. And let's say that you're a new graduate and you're earning the average new graduate salary of £28,731. Should we be thinking about saving at that point, or should we just kind of stick to surviving, not really worrying about saving? Because you're only making £2,000 a month at that point.
Yeah, it's not much. So here's the game plan, I think, for graduates. If I'm a graduate in 2025, I'm thinking, okay, 28 grand, it's frankly not enough to live off, to get married, to buy a house. I need to think of a pathway from going from 28 to ideally about 100. If I can get there. Fine. Or at least 70-ish, right? I am quite a distance off from there. So what you do is, first and foremost, you just figure out, okay, what job am I in? Is it a job where there's a trajectory and it increases in a consistent and predictable manner, or is it a bit of a dead end job, right? So if that's the case, then you need to change your job. If it's not the case, and you think, okay, right, just over the next 5 years, I should go from 28 to at least, let's say, 38 or 40, right? Okay, fine. So you're in some level of progression. Now, the second thing I would do is, can I, within my own career, do something that maybe after 2, 3, 4, 5 years jumps me an extra 10, 20, 30 on top? And for that, you're typically looking at additional qualifications, and you're typically looking at moving around between different places. So that allows you to, when you leave from one place to another, you typically get a promotion and you gain more experience. And then when you come back to the same place, even, you actually come back in a better place.
Yes. That links directly to something you said on LinkedIn a few months ago. You said don't be in a rush in your 20s. Identify where you want to be in a decade's time, what skills you'll need to get to be there. That's kind of what you're sort of describing.
Exactly.
And there's, I'm guessing, like you mentioned, quite a latency between learning the skill and then actually seeing the fruits.
100%. I mean, life, if you kind of boil it all down, it's about prioritizing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it's all about. Prioritizing tomorrow. Most people don't do that. 99.9% of people just don't do that.
Yeah.
And if you do that, and you do it for about 5 years in a consistent area, you will be world class at whatever it is that you do. It's an easy thing to say, but actually very few people do it.
Why do so few people do it?
Because it's hard to be consistent, and it's hard to be consistent when you are not very skilled, you don't get very much feedback, and you're not seeing particular success in it. And by the way, you might do it for 5 years and still not see success, but it's actually relatively unlikely if you are actually passionate about it and you are progressing in whatever area it is that you do.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah. And linking this back to God-centeredness and serving Allah, is there a...
Before we go to the God-centered, so the young graduate, he's increased his income, he's decreased his expenditure.
Yeah.
I think the other thing this graduate should be thinking of, where he's trying to get from 28 to 70, 80, is side hustles.
Fine.
And investing in his own education.
Fine.
As a graduate, I would 100% be thinking, I would say, look, I'm young, probably not married at this point. I need to get my head down and just learn how to code, and in particular learn AI. I need to just lock myself into a room for 2-3 hours every night and just smash it out. And then that links to the second thing, which is building your own thing, your own side hustles. Because I actually think the nature of work and employment and careers is changing, and it will change dramatically as a result of what we're seeing with the rise of AI. Dramatically, people are going to be out of employment, but then by the same token, you're going to see people making huge amounts of money, and sometimes it might not last, but because right now the tectonic plates have shifted in the world of commerce and technology and data, whatever. It's it opens up chasms where either you mine it and you make loads of money, or you fall down in it and you get crushed. And so it's more important than ever before, I think, not to be dozy and just do your follow the path that someone has set out for you, and actually be alert and curious and interested in things.
That's so interesting you say that, specifically with that specific example as well, because over the last year I've spent a lot of time actually learning to code.
Nice. Brilliant.
Like more so traditional coding, just to get the basics, and then obviously then AI on top of that. Didn't really know where it was gonna get me at the time. It was last summer, just after fourth year finals. But since then I've been making apps for patients. They're kind of being used clinically now.
Brilliant.
And we'll see where we go from there. But I've been very seriously considering, and this kind of links to something I wanted to talk about later, but I may as well bring it up now, which is I've been very seriously considering rejecting my foundation year 1 doctor's position and just either going all in on a startup or doing formal computer science education for a year, and then seeing where my career goes. If I go back to medicine, do I keep on going down this kind of sort of undefined path? And it kind of links to a question that I had, which is what should a Muslim's appetite for risk be when considering side hustles or doing something non-conventional, or just that's kind of the question. What is the appetite for risk that we should have?
Risk is an interesting one, right? So if we take aside our human weakness and our I guess foibles, then the thing that we should optimize for is not our personal reward or our personal, even happiness or, success. And we shouldn't we shouldn't even think about playing defense, because really what we get judged on, like when the first time I was listening to the khutbah today, the first time someone gets dipped in hellfire after a life of luxury, and they get asked, do you remember anything from the world? And he's like, no, I've never tasted a single moment of happiness. And the likewise for someone who goes to Jannah after a life of hardship. So if we truly believe that, then actually the only thing to optimize is how can we get to Jannah most efficiently and fastest, right?
Yeah.
And so the question then comes back to, like, for someone like you who's kind of weighing up these options, it's like, what is, something that I'm passionate about, so I can work harder at it, and I think it's going to go further and going to crucially get me to Jannah faster, right? And that's it. And then the risk aspect of it, again, I guess if we go back to the Islamic principles, it is to some extent you tie your camel, so then you turn to defense after that. But you have to think first principles about what is it that what's the path forward, right? And if the path forward leads over Mount K2, but it's worth it, because of just by making the intention right, you'll succeed. And if that's where the path leads, then you figure out, okay, right, I need some oxygen, I need I need to be able to go in subarctic temperature, whatever, right? And then you kind of come up with a game plan. But I think what ends up happening is that people just optimize for I need to stay alive, and I need to just make ends meet, and I just want to get comfortable, and then I will think about other things.
And then that's all they ever do is survive.
And that's what they will ever do.
Yeah. Interesting. And that point that you made, I think, resides a lot on what you mentioned, which is intention. I think it's easy for someone to go for a difficult, risky startup or career plan based on money as well, because it's higher risk but higher reward.
True.
Or on the other hand, you can say, actually, I want to go down this risky path because I can see the reward in terms of impact on like healthcare or the ummah, in terms of like Muslims' financial position in your case, which might be more than kind of the standard career that you were looking for. But on the other hand, maybe someone who sticks to medicine gets more reward because they have that intention of trying to heal the person in front of them, one patient at a time. So it sounds very, like you mentioned, it's very intention dependent.
Yeah, I think there's intention, but also there's, be honest with yourself, right? Because people often take the cop-out route, the easy route, and they say, ultimately, I'm going to be working hard, I'm going to be making enough. I work it like in healthcare, right? It's easy. I'm serving people, I'm doing fundamentally a good thing, and I'm going to make some money, and I look after my family, give charity. These are not reasons for staying in employment. These are cop-out answers. Now, a more fundamental, a good reason for staying in employment and staying in, let's say, the NHS, would be that, I deeply care about this area. I'm not, and most people are not, actually, by the way. Most people are not.
Don't worry, you don't need to convince me about that.
For, for startup life, or to be an entrepreneur, or to be this and that and the other. And like, I am not geared to be a caregiver or a nurse, or like, possibly even a doctor. I just know that I'm not geared that way. I'm not geared to be, head of compliance in any function. I just know that I'm not geared that way. So you need to be honest with yourself as well, right? And within that, within your box where you think your skill sets lie, you're just, deeply passionate about whatever this thing is, and you want to get to excellence in that, and you want to maybe do research, academia, you want to become a world-class surgeon, and you're interested in the tech side, whatever the thing might be. I think that sounds like a compelling story for staying in the NHS.
Nice. And I think doctors particularly are very good at just sticking to what they've always done, because that's what they have always done since school, uni, like applying to medicine, even the way the career ladder's designed, it's very just keep on doing what you're doing and you'll get there eventually, which I think is unique, particularly unique to medicine, more so than other careers, which makes it even more difficult for very bright doctors that have great ideas to ever step out of that.
It's not just doctors; it's any bright person in
Yeah.
any kind of from a decent kind of degree background.
Yeah.
Well, where do they go? They go into investment banking. They go into law.
Yeah.
They go into consultancy.
Yeah.
They might go into, I don't know, like accountancy, actuarial type stuff.
Yeah.
Or they might go into, if you're in a profession
Yeah.
like medicine, then you just do your thing.
Yeah.
And each of these actually have a very defined path.
Yeah.
Usually until the mid to late 20s, and then it gets a bit hazy, and that's when people start having their midlife crises,
Yeah.
because then how did I end up here?
Yeah.
I'm now bald.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
Yeah. Interesting. It sounds like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you are kind of leaning towards you should build something that you're good at, build something, start something, do something unconventional. Is that what you're recommending? Is there no merit to a 9 to 5 that you are really passionate about?
No, I'm not saying that at all, actually. So I think for though, I mean, you're sat in front of me, right? So and you've already shown track record that you're heading in a certain direction. So I think that's a different conversation. But for the average person, and by average person I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I mean because they are the majority, right? So that they're the average. It's actually better to stay in employment
and optimize the small things that you mentioned.
And it's not even the smaller things, right? So again, it comes back down to, what are you trying to optimize for? You're trying to optimize for his pleasure. And for most people that looks like, I have this kind of key project at work. I'm trying to really I think this is my way to serve God through my work. And then I have this project outside of work that all in, it's at heart something that's, I feel good about, and it's good for the world. And that's what this enables. But if you're not doing either of those things, and you're just plodding along and you're just doing your day, 9 to 5, that I think is unacceptable. Like what you're playing at.
Fine. Fair enough. And one person that's very passionate about this very particular topic, about excelling or kind of building something that you care about or what you're really good at, is Shanaz. I know you've had a conversation with Shanaz before, founder of Nia. And we were having a discussion about not just like reasons why you should kind of build, but also how does that impact the Ummah as a whole, and why we need builders in the Muslim community and in Britain, outside of Britain. And I know that you've got a lot of involvement in that sort of area as well. Cur8 Capital invests in like startups as well as kind of bigger companies, but you're also involved in Redwood Founders, which I'll be part of that, of the first batch in the summer, which I'm excited about. And you're also involved in like Muslim Tech Fest. So tell me a bit more about why you're involved in those kind of things, and how does that like shape the future of the Ummah in Britain and beyond?
So it's rare that people want to take the kind of risks that you need to take, keeping your just human hat on, these kind of risks, and it's really these people financially, from our goal for IFG is, how do we help our Ummah level up financially, and because that has an implication on politics and economic power and all sorts of things. And the single fastest way that you can move the needle is through entrepreneurs, because they're the ones who create enormous amounts of wealth quickly. And so we need to support that as much as we possibly can do. And this is the world of technology, right, these days. And so we need to enable that. And so what we do with Cur8 Capital is we try and finance businesses through the three ways that they need financing. And often, until very recently, there haven't been halal ways of doing this kind of financing. The first is venture capital, where you invest in early stage technology companies.
Yeah.
Actually, venture is fundamentally fine, halal, but you only get given venture capital if you're in the right circles.
Yeah.
And those circles were quite hard for Muslims to get into. So that's what we've been looking to address. We've backed over 100 different companies, including Shanaz, actually.
Nice.
Nia.
Nice.
And the second is private equity. So now you've got traditional businesses, and they're the bulk of businesses. But how many, and there are many Muslim entrepreneurs out there with decent sized, small businesses. And by small, I mean even a few £1 million of turnover. But there's very few who are in the Magnificent Seven. In fact, none, right? So the Magnificent Seven is, Amazon and Facebook, Meta, and Google, etc. The top 7 companies in the world.
Yeah.
They actually constitute about somewhere between 15 and I think 18% of all market cap in the entire world.
Fine.
These 7 companies.
Yeah.
Like, just think about that.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
That's
right?
insane.
And all of America, the American economy and the American stock market is about half of all stock markets globally. Actually, it's more than that. I think it's more than that. It's the numbers that we're talking about are mind-boggling, and they have a direct correlation with how much influence you have to be able to shape the world in a particular way. And the second country out there is China, and it's very it's not. You might say it's just correlation, but I think there's a little bit of cause here as well.
Yeah.
And so why do these traditional companies, why are they not listed? Why are they not massive? Well, a part of that is they don't have a playbook. They've never, been in those kind of environments where they pick that up. Part of it is that there's no halal options for them, right? And the third thing is debt finance, some kind of, Sharia compliant, financing that replaces interest-based finance.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're working on through our funds as well. So why do I think it's important to focus on entrepreneurs? Because for my mission, which I think is everyone's mission, at least one of the the taxonomy of 4 things on the economy side, I think this should be everyone's mission.
Yeah.
I think this is the single fastest way for us to achieve it.
Fine. And you can tell that from the way you get excited talking about it compared to there was more I wanted to talk about in terms of the basic stuff, which to be fair, I didn't really want to talk about that much either. It makes for a less interesting episode, but maybe more practical. But it sounds like Cur8 is it's got to 100, and now it's helping those get from 8 to 15, so that those 15s can get those that are from 0 to 1. So it's almost like a sort of food chain, but instead of the big fish eating the small fish, it's the big fish helping the small fish.
Yeah, I think on the investment side, it's also about scale, because it's all well and good saying, we can help people with as little as £100 or £50, but actually if there's no business model there, then you're going to go bankrupt, and then you're not going to serve anyone. So what we would like to think, and we're actually in the process of inshallah starting to offer things that are much lower ticket and give a lot more access to people.
Yeah.
But you kind of get to that by at least building a solid base.
Yeah.
And it's not, frankly, to be honest, we're not that elite either. You can actually get in for a minimum of £5,000.
Yeah.
And £5,000 is fine. It's not like a small amount of money, but actually in the grand scheme of things, it's not a massive amount of money either.
Yeah.
Like, people will see the average graduate is getting £28,000 a year.
Yeah.
Within 2, 3, 4 years max, they should be able to save up at least that.
Yeah. And talking about scale, just out of curiosity, I know that Cur8 handles over 100 million in capital, and you've invested in 100, you mentioned venture capital businesses. How many of those are either majority or at least one kind of Muslim founder in that company? Do you have a preference?
About half, I'd say.
About half.
Yeah.
And have you seen a difference regarding success or returns between the Muslim and the non-Muslim?
I don't think we've done that analysis. I wouldn't say so. Yeah, I don't think I've done the analysis.
Yeah.
And of that 150 or so million dollars, I'd say venture is actually a very small portion of it, maybe about
Fine.
15-20% of it.
Fine.
Because naturally, like an early stage tech company doesn't actually need millions.
Yeah.
It, especially early stage where we invest, it needs a few £100,000.
Yeah.
So that's what we give it. But a lot of the bigger investments are in things like, income and real estate and, facilitating Islamic home finance and various things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. The only reason
And pharmacies.
Yes, I saw that video. That was a good video. That was all about like private equity, sort of
That's right.
buying, selling, grouping
Yeah.
together. 18x, 12x.
That's it.
Yes.
Have you been to an Everest before?
Everest.
Everest pharmacies.
No, I haven't.
They're in Manchester.
Are they?
So yeah,
The video didn't mention that they were north west based, but no, I'm not a pharmacy goer or a pharmacy fan, if that's a thing.
Neither was I until 2 years ago. Now I see them everywhere.
Yeah, with the automatic machines and stuff.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that yet. Not yet. But maybe as a doctor, I'll.
Where do you live in Manchester?
Altrincham.
Oh, right. Okay.
North, like South Manchester.
I don't think we've got a site in Altrincham, although I think we do have one in Cheadle now and one in Didsbury, maybe two in Didsbury now.
Nice.
So maybe I'll keep an eye out for Altrincham.
I'll refer my patients to Everest pharmacies when I'm practicing, just for you. Cool. And yeah, the reason I asked about the sort of like difference between Muslim and non-Muslim is trying to figure out, is it that like non-Muslims just inherently are better at starting businesses for whatever reason, or is it just that there's been historically a difference in opportunity? But if you're saying that you haven't really seen a difference in success between Muslims and non-Muslims, it is really just about making sure that our community has the opportunities they need to get to those places.
I mean, in our portfolio, I've not done the analysis, but I think there is a difference in that our community, the Muslim community, let's think about tech. We've had a few largish exits, and it's great that money flows back into the ecosystem. We help manage some of it.
Yeah.
But more importantly, there's a knowledge there that this is what it feels like to have an exit of $500 million, right, or $1 billion. But there's not that many Muslims who've had exits, much north of that. Yeah. And that's actually important because $500 million sounds like a big number, but actually it's not.
In the grand scale,
in the grand scheme of things, it's not. If the goal is, to be in the Magnificent Seven, then this is not even like a blip, right? And so the skill set aspect of it, I think, is a little bit still embryonic.
There's a ceiling to it.
But I think that will change
Inshallah.
Over time. And I think the US, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, it's deeper there. Frankly, so I think it's important to have that connectivity with the valley, Muslims in the valley as well.
Yes, nice. Things like Uplift are doing good work there. And
exactly.
Nice. Cool. I like that. It was a bit of a derail, but I enjoyed it. And let's continue on this sort of direction for now. And talking about, we've already touched a lot on sort of why it's important for the Ummah to have entrepreneurs that can drive those that are struggling further up as well. So it's kind of like this ecosystem that's helping each other. And focusing particularly on Britain, not just British Muslims. There was one post that was interesting on LinkedIn that you mentioned, which is, it was recent. You mentioned that 20,000 pubs in the UK have shut down since 2000. We as Muslims have a real chance to contribute to the next chapter of British life, not as guests, but as builders. And it sort of connects to what we've been talking about for the last 10, 15 minutes. Is it just through entrepreneurship that we need to be builders, or is there other ways culturally that we need to be builders as well in Britain as Britain transforms, as you mentioned?
As much as I might like to think otherwise, economics and finance and money making and investments is but a small part of a well-rounded person's life. And we all have our own skill sets, our own areas. And so in whatever area that we are good at, that's where we should pitch the tent. and it's a mindset thing. We should pitch the tent so that we have we see people as human beings that we need to ultimately try and give them salvation, right?
Yeah.
Or at least give them the message of salvation.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, then we're probably not on the prophetic pathway, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what would he do? Now, what did all the prophets do? Like if you read it, they all came. They were all bashira wa nadira. They were all bearers of glad tidings and bearers of warning.
Yeah.
They all said ya qawmi ibudullah, my people worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then they addressed a particular sin, or a particular challenge that people had, and so that there's a very established playbook. They all did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And they took the conversation to those who were not yet Muslims.
Yeah.
And if that's what all of the messengers did, if that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to do in the Quran, ud'u ila sabili rabbik bil hikmah wal maw'izati al hasana, and waltakum minkum ummatun yad'una lil khair wa ya'muruna bil ma'ruf wa yanhauna 'anil munkar, let there arise from amongst you a people that call towards good, yad'una lil khair wa ya'muruna bil ma'ruf, and enjoin good and forbid evil. These are, and there's many other verses like that in the Quran.
Yeah.
If that is what the Quran is saying, that's a holistic, universal message for all of society. That's not a message about cultural Islam, where we are creating a Muslim brown men's club, which is effectively what some masajid can be.
Yeah.
This is a masjid. This is a place to do sujood, and put what he wants above what we want.
Yeah. It's about integration, propagating the message, living with and working with and sharing with those that aren't Muslim yet.
Yeah. I wouldn't even use the word integration, although I get why you've used it.
Yeah.
It's more about, like, we genuinely should, and I'm not sure I do this. We genuinely should see this as, and see John off the street in the same light, with the same care that we see Ryan off the street.
Yeah, interesting.
And he happens to be Muslim, so he's already on the right path. But John, we really should care about John.
Yeah. Integration implies that we are inherently different, which isn't the case. Is what you're saying.
It's like we want to create a different social consciousness, or a different mood music around us, or different kind of thought process, and it should be so powerful and useful and infective. I don't know if that's even infectious. That John is absorbed into that. So it's not that we are integrating in anything. It's like, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. This is where we have pitched our tent, and it's such an incredible tent that people want to come to it. It's like, why do people try and migrate to Britain or the USA or Canada or the Emirates right now? It's you create a vibe around a place, and it sucks people in. You don't need to integrate or go out to them. They will come to you.
And I think we've got a lot of work to get to that point, but that is amazing vision. Cool. So I think we're both having lots of fun talking about the bigger picture, but right before we sort of finish off, I'd like to go through a few sort of quick snapshot, your opinion on things, what should Muslims think about it, sort of hot topics. You can either answer, or you can answer with a bit of a longer conversation, not for the next 10 minutes. But how does that sound?
Well, so I can either answer, or
you can either answer, or you can
say
you can say, this is too long. This
okay,
is too long of a conversation. I can't answer this in like a couple sentences. Up to you. So first one being student loans. Is there options for Muslims at the moment? Should we take student loans?
I think that we should not be stopped from going to university because of student loans. But inshallah, next year I think there should be Islamic halal student loans coming out.
Nice. Mortgages.
Go for Islamic mortgages. Don't go for conventional ones.
Nice.
And if you feel compelled to scratch your head and say, oh, but they're all the same, they're more expensive, they're all like the other conventional mortgages, they just change the words around, and because my knowledgeable friend down the the masjid or in the Eid party told me that, then know that you are again, I love the medical examples. It's like you're going to a quack doctor, or you're going to your cousin down the street to get advice on diabetes. You don't know anything about diabetes, right? Why would you trust him? You'd go to a doctor.
Yeah. Saying that, many people still do that from a medical perspective as well.
They do. They actually, this is why it's a good analogy. But it's the same point.
Yeah,
exactly. It's the same point.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Pensions.
What about them?
Is there are all pensions okay? Should we think about what sort of pensions we're getting?
You should have a pension. If you work in the public sector, your pension is fine. It's permissible. If you work in the private sector, then you should make sure that you're investing in halal funds.
Yeah. Having a bank account.
I think it's like a necessity of life, really, isn't it?
Fine.
If we can eventually try and evolve it so that there's more Islamic banks, ultimately we change the way that the monetary system is, and I think maybe this is a conversation for like another time. What a truly Islamic financial system would look like.
Yeah.
But you have to use a bank account.
Cool. Using a credit card.
I would avoid it. I wouldn't say that it's like categorically haram, but my perspective on that has changed. I think that using credit cards can implicitly or indirectly lead to greater wealth inequality, and it can lead to harm for lots of people.
Yeah. Investing in public stocks, like the standard public stocks like S&P 500 versus Wahid Invest versus Cur8 Capital. Cur8 Capital is more sort of bigger investments, but where should we invest our money if we don't have £5,000?
If you don't have £5,000 and you're young, I think you should invest it in your own education, or just doing your own passion projects or side hustles.
Yeah.
Because longer term, that's actually going to bring you more economic value than otherwise.
Yeah.
If you don't have any passion projects, and don't want to invest in your education, then I think somewhere like a Wahid Invest or Simply Ethical will be good places to start.
Cool. Having a will at our age.
Yeah, you can just get a free will. We've got links to free will. I think we possibly actually offer a free will on the website.
Nice.
That you can download and fill out. I think you should have a will.
Nice.
Because,
cool.
There's always something.
Nice. Cool. All practical stuff is done for the rest of the episode. And I want to end up on this question. We've talked a lot about the bigger picture. And we've talked a lot about your mission particularly. And I want to ask you now, where do you see the Ummah and British Muslims and Britain from a financial, economical perspective in the next 20 years? And where do you want to be in sort of that system? And what role do you want to play in the next sort of 20 years?
The Muslim community will, just based on demographics, be somewhere between 15 and 20% of the UK population. And that means that we will be, quite a significant economic player.
Yeah.
Not least because half of us are under the age of 25.
Yeah. Make sure Farage doesn't hear this.
Yeah, no, exactly. I always think that, Nigel Farage, when he's, elderly in a retirement home or what have you, he will probably have, Abdurrahman from Nigeria, who actually comes around as his, domiciliary care to look after him.
Yeah.
So we will, literally be the last face that he probably sees.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Statistically.
So I think demographics-wise, as a community, we are naturally on a decent path, I think.
Yeah.
Now, where I think we can excel is by churning out lots and lots of entrepreneurs, supporting each other,
Yeah.
Creating and demanding a higher quality, a higher bar from Muslim-owned businesses.
Yeah.
But then also just not, and I know it's rich from someone who runs a company called Islamic Finance Guru, but not just focusing on Muslims as well,
Yeah.
and actually having a much broader vision, such that, like the Christian school in Pakistan or India is not just for Christians, it's everyone, but it is an emblem of status and it's an emblem of quality.
Yeah.
That's what, this community should be for society.
Yeah. Nice. And for the wannabe entrepreneur or trying to be entrepreneur, where should they go for these communities, for support, for these circles?
I think people like, Muslim Tech Fest, Deen developers, Muslimic makers, Redwood founders, everyone like that. They're doing. There's Hulm Club in London. They're doing fantastic work. Come to some of our VC events. There's a thriving community there. Tap into that.
Nice, amazing. And final question, which is, what is the next big thing for you, if you're able to reveal?
For me in particular,
for you as a person, as in terms of your companies, anything. What was the next big thing you're working on?
I guess like from a company perspective, we're very focused on working out public equities and pensions. So that's those inshallah would be products that we want to hopefully at some point bring to the market inshallah in the next 12 months or so. And then I think for us as a company, we need to just go from where we are today to continue growing larger and larger. Like for us, the equivalent of the Magnificent Seven would be to be managing I don't know, about $1 trillion.
Yeah,
and that's when you become a top 20 asset manager.
Nice.
We are nowhere.
Inshallah. May Allah make that journey easy for you.
Ameen.
Ameen. And may Allah reward you for everything that you've been doing for the Ummah, through your work, and for sharing everything that you've shared today as well. Jazakallah khair, Ibrahim, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.